Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We are back. Hello, hello. Greetings. We're here for the October 30th, 2024 edition of the Premarket Prep session. Happy to be back in business. It's been, a crazy week, a packed week, an emotionally taxing week. But that's the thing about life, right? It gives you challenges and you continue to traverse them and traverse them together, lean on each other when you need to, and keep pushing higher, even if it's just 1% better daily, which is what we're here to do today. So I'm going to get into our news and make sure to drop your ones in the chat signifying your intention to get 1% better by the end of this session. And let's get rocking and rolling. Right, let's get rocking and rolling because we are talking tariff wars here. EU and China. The European Union has raised tariffs on China made electric vehicles to as high as 45.3% starting Wednesday after a detailed anti subsidy investigation that has been criticized by Beijing as well as the broader automaking industry. The tariffs will likely intensify the trade war between the EU and China, although negotiations are expected to continue to reach an amicable solution. Digging deeper, in addition to the EU's standard 10% car import duty, EVs made in China will be subject to the following tariff rates: Tesla, 7.8%, BYD, 17%, Geely, 18.8%, cooperating companies, including Xpeng and NIO, uh, are at 20.7%. State-run SAIC and all other firms at 35.3%. The tariffs went into effect a day after they were published in the EU's official journal. Now, bigger picture, the additional tariffs were implemented to protect EU automakers from unfair competition as Chinese EV makers benefit from state subsidies, allowing them to flood the European market with cheaper cars. It also said China's spare EV production capacity significantly exceeds demand in China, and the Chinese market is nearly 3 times the size of the EU market. So, China's response: China does not agree with or accept the ruling that has filed a lawsuit under the WTO dispute settlement mechanism, a spokesperson for its commerce ministry said. We also noticed that the side indicated it would continue to negotiate with China on price commitments, signaling more consultations to avoid escalation of trade frictions. So China is widely seen to have retaliated by imposing anti-dumping measures on EU brandy imports and investigating EU imports of pork and dairy products. What's new here? Tariff wars. But at this point in time, it's between the EU and China. Normally when we hear tariff wars, we're thinking like, oh, we got, kind of Trump and China and things like that. But that's not the case this time. It's the EU and China, and EVs are really in the scope here. China is proving to be a much, I guess, more challenging than anticipated force in the EV market. I mean, BYD especially. And this is something that the EU is taking account of, and they're not going to let Chinese EVs flood the market, and take things over. So we're in just a contentious political time, as well as like between nations, um some might call it international relations, right? And the easier phrase for it. International relations are very, very tense. We've got elections going all over the place. We've got kind of these uncertainties when it comes to power and who will hold the power moving forward. And then we've got this escalating tension between the U.S. and the West, and then adversaries in the East like North Korea and what is it, Russia, and all this stuff happening. I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently there were like U.S. Special Forces bodies that were found. I guess they were killed like with Ukrainian passports or something like that. So it's escalating, right? Things are escalating because there was this whole like some other country was sending troops to fight with Russia, and there's kind of been these rumors that we've been there fighting with Ukraine already. So this just serves to be another little piece of tension that's added to the pile of mounting tensions. It is not directly with the U.S., but it is with the EU. So we'll keep an eye on it. There's nothing right now that affects that is really, going to change or determine how I'm looking at any of the tickers that are involved. I'm not going to look at Tesla any differently. I'm not going to look at, BYD or NIO any differently. But it is something to stay up to date on. Tariffs used to be like the biggest headline. Like back in the day, there was news of escalation of tariffs, the market reacted. Now, there's more news of tariffs, and the market literally does not care. There's just so much else going on. So if tariffs, kind of work their way back up to being an important thing, then maybe we pay some attention. But for right now, has not seemed very impactful. What else is happening? Jolt's data job openings dropped more than expected in September. Alphabet Q3 earnings, AI spending pays off. Google, one of the names that I mentioned yesterday before close, which was very nice on some earnings plays. Hit on 2 of 3 out of those. Right, we got Google, we got Reddit, and of course, good old AMD, good old underachieving AMD doing what you come to expect of it, which is really disappoint. But 2 out of 3 on completely crapshoot earnings, can't be mad at it. So if you pulled the trigger on those, then we hit, a nice little 75% hit rate on them, and should be some nice payments here this morning. Now, Robotaxi Stunner, Waymo crosses 150,000 paid trips a week. AMD Q3 earnings. Here's why the stock declined. I think it was their guidance. OpenAI partners with Broadcom, TSMC, whose ticker is TSM for AI chips. So, OpenAI not just partnering with NVIDIA, but they've got Avgo in there, right, which is Broadcom. They've got TSM. I heard apparently TSM's new plant here in the US is like more productive than the ones they have overseas. So that's good news for like domestic chip production. Musk acknowledges major economic risks of $2 trillion budget cuts. FDA cites key Novo plant that makes Wegovy and Ozempic. JP Morgan, ticker JPM, sues customers over alleged viral check fraud. Next Era, ticker NEE, Florida unit seeks bill hike to cover hurricane costs. So that's where we're at here this week. And let's also go check on the week ahead in our little economic calendar for the week, just to make sure that we don't have any events that are sneaking up on us here. Because in terms of earnings, we've got a lot of big ones, right? On Monday, we had Ford, we had Waste Management. Tuesday, we had Alphabet, who's, the parent company of Google, Advanced Micro Devices, AMD. We have McDonald's report, Pfizer, and Mondelez International. Mondelez makes probably all the snacks in your pantry, if you're an American at least. Wednesday, October 30th. Today, we've got Microsoft, Meta Platforms, Eli Lilly, Caterpillar, Amgen, and Starbucks. And then Thursday, we've got Apple, Amazon, MasterCard, Merck Pharmaceuticals, Uber Technologies, and Comcast. And Friday, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and Charter Communications. So this is the most packed week of earnings, right? These are the most valuable companies in the world. They have the most sway in the world. They impact everything that goes on in the world. So this is an important week for markets. How do markets usually behave during weeks like this? Well, we tend to get a lot of chop, right? We get a lot of chop as people wait for information. Sometimes you'll see volume and you'll see kind of movement happen as people place earnings bets. Does volume necessarily mean those people end up being right? No. You can place a bad trade, with $1 million or 5 million or 10 million, just like you can with $10 or $20 or $100. It's the same thing, right? So, you kind of want to again make sure that you understand that earnings season is a volatile time. That you can have a company that beats, but the guidance isn't quite where you want it to be, and the company sinks. There are all these different things that can happen. So just understand that if you do, make any earnings plays or place any earnings trades, like I always say, don't use money that you wouldn't be mad lighting on fire or flushing down the toilet, right? If you say, oh, you know what, I'm kind of bored and, I've got a larger account, I'm fine with, gambling $100, $150, seeing what happens. Cool. Right. You can have the charts match up and then you have positive sentiment going into it. That's the best thing you can look for when trying to make an earnings play. But other than that, it's not something you want to get addicted to. It's not something that you want to try to turn into a strategy. Winning out on earnings. It's a complete crapshoot. Don't treat it as anything more, anything less. It honestly does not matter. Like I'm such an analytical person. It doesn't matter how many different angles you attack, like trying to figure out an answer to earnings. You will not be able to definitively say anything ever, and it will always be a huge risk, bar none. right? Like I was econ major. I know all the different factors, I know like trying to factor in, okay, if I'm making this model, what are my exogenous variables? What are the things that are going to really make a difference? There are too many variables that make a difference when you are plotting for earnings, right? So you're seeing one article that talks about how so and so is involved with AI, this and that, and you think they're going to go up. There are literally like 1 million other data points that you aren't seeing that could also affect what's going on. So I just say all that to keep it in mind, right? However much research you think you've done on earnings, it's not enough for it to not be a crapshoot. That doesn't mean you can't get it right, right? Doesn't mean that you can't make money. Doesn't mean that you can't get it wrong and still make money. There are companies that miss and then they go up because they have good guidance. It's just a word of caution so that you understand the expectations going into it. That's all. Let's see here. Now let's check our economic calendar slash political calendar here. Wednesday, ADP employment, GDP at 8:30 a.m. So we got GDP data this morning. It's important. Thursday, October 31st, PCE index, core PCE. So we do get inflation data tomorrow. That is not kind of the inflation data that normally moves markets. Normally the market moves more for CPI if it does move. PCE, though, is important for the Fed. That is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. And then Friday, U.S. employment and unemployment report, manufacturing PMI. So Friday at 9:45 a.m. and 10 a.m., we've got like those things that can cause some, minor volatility. Like those kind of happen. That 9:45 a.m. data drop, 10 a.m. data drop. So keep an eye out for those on Friday. But Thursday, the biggest thing is going to be PCE, which is inflation, right? Personal consumer expenditure. We've got that data dropping tomorrow morning. And this morning at 8:30 a.m. we had GDP data. So let's see, does that affect SPY at all? Looks like we're opening down a bit. Actually, right around where we closed. We're literally opening right where we closed. We started to move a little bit higher overnight, but moved back down, and now we're kind of right near the low, a little bit below the low. No, we're not below the low of yesterday, but we're a little bit below where we closed yesterday on SPY, a few cents. So, not much overall movement at the end of the day there. But Google up from 170 bucks a share to 180 bucks a share. We've got Reddit up from just over 80 bucks a share to just over $100 a share. So big jump on Reddit. Should be a nice, payday on both Google and Reddit. And then AMD. Wah, wah, AMD doing what AMD does best. Disappointing, but that's all right. It is what it is. 2 for 3. I'll take it. Nice green morning this morning. If you kind of entered into the casino with some of these earnings plays, and if you didn't, that's fine. This whole week is about patience. This whole week is about being vigilant and pulling the trigger on good looks when you get the opportunity to pull the trigger on good looks. That's what it's about. And we'll continue to do that. Right? We'll continue to do just that. So everybody have a great rest of the day. That wraps us up on this fine morning. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow for our last pre-market prep session. Have a good one. Not our last. It's Thursday. Don't let me say that. Not our last. Our second one of the week. Our second to last session. Oh, on Halloween. Spooky session. Maybe I'll come in costume. You know. But anyways, all right, guys. Have a great rest of the day. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.